Greetings. Let me welcome you to what is commonly known as a nature walk. Actually what it is, we're going to be showing you the medicinal and nutritional properties of these plants that you see around us. Plants that you walk by every day, you know, some you disregard as useless weeds, but most of these plants has the ability to cure many ailments and diseases, you know, been used by the pioneers, the Native Americans, and all cultures in all space and time. Before we go on a nature walk, there's just a few instructions. Never, when you're picking a plant, treat it in a tender, loving, and kind way, because it's a living thing, you know. Don't just come and pick it and rip it out in a violent fashion. What happens when you do that? The plant goes into shock and pull everything down into the roots, and all you wind up with is a handful of green bush. So when you're going to pick a plant, go to the plant, caress it a little bit, you know, pick it, tell it that you are going to pick it, tell it you need it for whatever you need. I need it for arthritis, so and so, and I'd like you to give me a piece, and it will give you a piece. You break it off nice and easy, and you take it, and that plant will put all the elements in that area piece that you pick that you need to cure whatever you need. So plant is not just planting a herb, harvesting it, chopping it up, etc. It's the way you treat the herb that reflects the effectiveness of that herb on the ailment you ask the herb to cure. This is all, as far back as you can go in history. You find the Native Americans, African peoples, all was in harmony with nature, and that's why these herbs were so effective, because they used them and treated them in a loving and kind way. And another thing, the environment that you pick the herbs out of, you must always, if you want to check if the environment is safe, just take a look at the rabbits and the squirrels and the birds around. And as long as they are healthy looking, fur nice, lots of birds around, then you know the environment is safe to pick your herbs from, because they feed off the vegetation in that environment, so they wouldn't flourish if the environment was contaminated, etc. The other plant you're going to see is the skunk cabbage. The skunk cabbage is primarily used by the Native Americans for all types of respiratory ailments, that is asthma, bronchitis, tuberculosis, anything to do with mucus congestion and the breathing passages. That's a skunk cabbage. Also the leaves. If someone faint, you can crush the fresh leaves of the skunk cabbage and let them smell it, you know, and that will revive them in the same way that smelling salts will revive anyone. So that's a skunk cabbage. Primary use, all respiratory ailments. You make a seed with a tea with the roots or the dried herb. This plant now is a very important plant, especially for females. Females should stop and take note. This is known as the black cohosh, C-O-H-O-S-H. The part of this plant that is used is the roots. And one of the primary uses of this plant is for females, ladies that's going through menopause, because the roots of this plant contains estrogen, and it supplies the body with that estrogen, which relieves hot flashes. This plant is a plant that's also good for any type of menstrual problems, and it's also good to normalize the blood pressure. Very important plant. It's known as the black cohosh. You can see the flowers, or you can recognize them. You see the beads on the end before the petals open. The petals open from the bottom up. You see, open from here and works their way up. This is known as the black cohosh. Very, very important plant. Native Americans, this is one of the plants that anywhere you see this plant growing, you know that Native Americans used to live there, because this is one of their main plants, especially for any type of female problems and for blood pressure also. The black cohosh. You see the leaves? You can take a look at the leaves, where you can recognize the plant even if you don't have the flowers. Another way to recognize the plant is to recognize the smell by crushing the leaves, getting a whiff of it. That way you can, if the flower is not there, you can recognize the plant without the bloom. Best time to harvest this plant, the root of this plant, is in the fall or in the spring, or right now after it goes into bloom and the flowers goes away, then you would harvest the roots in the springtime or in the fall. The black squash. Now, this one, I know you folks in Jamaica call this callaloo, but actually that's the wrong name for it. The actual name for this plant is amaranth. It's a very ancient plant. The ancient Aztecs and Incas people of South America used to cultivate this plant, but they never cultivated it as a vegetable. They cultivated it for the seeds. This is what the seeds look like when it come up here. This is what the seeds look like. They cultivated it for the seeds, so that they grind the seeds into a powder and turn that into meal, where they would use to bake bread and use as cereal, as a breakfast cereal. Now the herb in itself, in Jamaica and other places, we use it as a greens, where we steam it and we have it as a greens. This herb is very rich in iron, very good for female problems. That's why they always say they have a little rhyme in Jamaica that goes, "Callaloo water is good for your daughter," meaning the water from this plant, when you boil it, is good for any kind of female problems, any problems with the womb at all, especially if you are anemic. It's very rich. It takes care of the iron in the blood, gives you a lot of iron, and at the same time it's very cleansing to the intestinal tract and the bowels. Here's another plant over here I'd like to show you. This one is another plant that it's similar to the callaloo in its taste when you steam it. This plant now was also cultivated for the seeds. It sends up seeds similar to the callaloo, and you can gather those seeds, grind them into a meal, and you can bake bread with it. You can use it as a cereal, etc. You can also steam it as a green leafy vegetable, very rich. This plant contains more vitamin A and calcium than any cultivated vegetable that you can come in contact with. Very rich, also very rich in iron also. The roots of this plant now you can crush them, and you can use it as a soap, because when you slosh it like that in water, it suds, and you can bathe in that for any kind of skin problems. You can shampoo your hair with it, and you can wash with it. And this grows in abundance. It grows wild. Now there's another very important plant that I'd like to show you, and that's this one right here. This one in Jamaica, we call it the pusley.